It is Wednesday, August 19th, 2026, coming to you from America's beautiful North Coast, from the shores of Lake Superior. This is the American Dissent. I'm your host, Sam Martin.
And I'm Jen Schultz.
Before we dive in, please subscribe to our channel. Hit the like button, leave a comment. It all helps as we begin our journey here on YouTube. If you're listening to the podcast, please leave a 5-star review. Thank you ever so much. On today's show, an absolute shock in Florida last night as the DSA now has its first ever statewide candidate win a primary after being outspent 16-1. That's right, 16-1, and having $0 spent on any television advertising. State Representative and DSA member Angie Nixon defeated the heavily favored Alexander Vindman, famous for his whistleblower testimony in the first Trump impeachment. Nixon didn't just win, she dominated with a 12-point shock upset. She'll now face the incumbent Republican Ashley Moody, who was appointed to the seat by Governor Ron DeSantis after Marco Rubio left the Senate to become Trump's Secretary of State. We'll cover other important results in Florida, Wyoming, Alaska, Pennsylvania, and California as well. Horrific news out of Gaza, as Israel forces have significantly ramped up their lethal efforts since Jared Kushner's visit. Israeli strikes killed 17 Palestinians just last night. Itamar Ben-Gvir, the Minister of National Security, is publicly calling for 30 to 40 Palestinian deaths in Gaza every night, going on to say, quote, "Not just those who pose an imminent threat. There are people there who are not worthy of life. They shouldn't live. They're not even people. I see all of Gaza as ours," unquote. There is an upcoming election in Israel. It is telling that the current administration of Benjamin Netanyahu feels its electoral chances are best served by openly calling for continued genocide and ethnic cleansing. Pro-Israeli groups in the United States, meanwhile, are claiming that Ben-Gvir doesn't represent the government or its policies. I'll repeat, he is the sitting Minister of National Security, one of the top officials in the country. In the continued horrors of the Trump administration immigration policy, the African nation of Liberia has agreed to receive up to 1,200 deportees regardless of their country of origin. This could include immigrants from Africa, North and South America, and the Caribbean. Similarly, Trump has been quietly deporting Mexican migrants to Guatemala and Honduras. This despite Mexico's stated willingness to accept all of its citizens. It's simply psychotic behavior. Lastly, Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison has now sued Texas Governor Greg Abbott to compel the extradition of ICE agent Christian Castro, who faces charges in Minnesota of assault and falsely reporting a crime in connection with the bizarre shooting in January of Julio Cesar Solis. The lawsuit appears to allege that Governor Abbott may soon release Castro from custody and allow him to flee to Mexico, where Castro apparently plans to marry and buy a house. These headlines and more up for discussion on today's Dissent. Kind of a dark state of affairs.
Well, we live in dark days, but,
That's true.
silver lining in Florida. I think people were really shocked to see Representative Angie Nixon win
Very
handily
shocked.
over Vindman. And you said outspent 16-1. People should know she raised $900,000
Yeah.
and he raised $16 million and spent
Making the math easy.
spent $2 million on media ads, thinking that he was going to, save the rest to run against Republican. Well, he was really overconfident and must not have had much of a ground game because she did.
Jen, I have two theories here. They might both play a role, but let me bounce them off you. One is this race. Like literally, I edited myself because I felt like my headlines yesterday were getting a little long. I was going to talk about this race yesterday and decided that Vindman was such a heavy favorite, I might as well not. My bad. I apologize to you and all of our listeners and viewers for making that poor editorial choice. But I feel like because this race has flown so far under the radar, it shows the power of a left-wing candidate when left alone by the national media. I feel like those polls showing, for instance, Abdul El-Sayed well ahead, if that race had been another sleeper that just kind of went under notice, because notice the Minnesota race, Peggy Flanagan, kind of flew under the national media. And of course, this one completely flew under national media. And both candidates performed well above expectations, which is to say Peggy Flanagan in Minnesota and Angie Nixon in Florida. So that's one thought I had.
Well, the other thing is apparently there were no polls in this Florida race. So unlike the other races, they were doing a lot of polling. I mean,
there were
those
really poor internal polls that are really bad. But it also makes me wonder about the Wisconsin governor's race, because that became national media huge. It was flying completely under the radar for months, and then in the last month or so, that gained huge national notoriety. And I'm wondering if that played a significant role as well in turning that around.
Definitely. I think the national media and how they spin things or what they report, I think it makes an impact. And here you have some evidence of that. Vindman was, I think the favored candidate, like you said.
Heavily.
And I mean, not just in terms of money, but just in terms of recognition.
Huge name recognition, huge.
But so what I think what's strange is how much she won by. And I think he was really surprised. I mean, really caught off guard, because he could have spent a lot more money on name recognition and getting his name out there, and even hiring field staff to go door knocking. Apparently is what Nixon did, is they knocked doors of Democrats to remind them to vote in this race, in this cycle. So she didn't have to persuade people. She just had to make sure people voted. And
right, because
her people were at the door, so that person was going to vote for that, for Nixon.
Well, one of my critiques of the Francesca Hung campaign in Wisconsin was that she didn't even put up, protective television ads, just to kind of blunt the attacks of David Crowley in the last 2 weeks. And I still think that's a good critique. I still think that would have made a difference. But Angie Nixon didn't have one single television ad, not one, just like Francesca Hahn, and had a 12-point win. Versus, so here's my other theory of this, and I think it also plays a role. Now, how much of a role, I have no idea. I mean, you'd probably have to do a whole doctoral dissertation and really dive into data and all these kind of things. But my other theory is that because nobody thinks that the Democrats are going to perform well statewide in Florida, the Democratic voters aren't concerned about the electability argument at all. It's just not a function for them voting, because they don't think a Democrat's going to win, period. So they might as well vote for who they want to vote for, rather than feel like they have to eat their spinach, as it were. And so I think that, combined with just this race flying under the radar, made it, a 12-point victory, Jen. 12%. It's not close.
But was electability a reason in other races in Florida, though? Because you have the incumbent, is it Markovitz? He keeping his seat.
Jared Moskowitz, yeah.
Moskowitz, so he was challenged, and so Democrats are worried that because Nixon won, that they don't have a chance in the general election.
Oh, of course they are. Of course they are, because it fits their priors. If someone on the left wins, they automatically think that race is lost.
I don't know what is it. I don't know what type of district it is in terms of plus Trump, but
well, this is statewide.
Oh, statewide. I'm sorry. It's That's what's hard about a statewide race, though. It's hard, maybe in a primary, because she's just talking to Democrats, right, to get them to vote in the primary. Statewide, it's a whole different game. So this is why Democrats are worried they're not going to hold on to this seat or win this seat, flip this seat. They're not counting on it. I don't think they ever were, regardless of who won. But they just thought they had a better chance with Vindman.
Well, the last time the Democrats fielded a statewide candidate who was a populist was in 2018 in the gubernatorial race. And, oh my God, I'm blanking on his name. He's had substance abuse problems, and, unfortunately his life has kind of fallen apart a little bit. I wish I could remember his name, but he was a pretty compelling candidate, and he only lost to Ron DeSantis by like a few thousand votes. And he was a fairly progressive candidate. So there's a history of progressivism doing well in the state. So I think, but this is, again, testing the theory that progressives and DSA people want to test. We're not going to know how Vindman would have done if he were the general election candidate, but people have to hold open the possibility that Angie Nixon will actually perform better than Alexander Vindman would have. And part of it is candidate quality. He was not a quality candidate. As you're pointing out, he did nothing. He was lazy. And that was a worry. I mean, people were worried about it. And there was public grumbling from a lot of Democrats about the fact that he didn't want to work. And,
Wow.
He was confronted by a constituent who wanted to know what his position on Israel was. And he refused to call it a genocide or budge on that. And I think that played a role. And going to candidate quality, I was lamenting, and I've been lamenting the fact that, in Wisconsin, I keep going back to Wisconsin. I can't help myself. But Francesca Hahn was an excellent candidate in many respects, but there were certain things that that she wasn't as good at. And importantly, interviews, contentious interviews. Now, I'll be honest, I haven't seen Angie Nixon in a contentious interview. But I want to play for you, Jen, a part of her victory speech, because I think we're talking about someone on the level of Mamdani or El Sayed as far as candidate quality, because boy, is she good, like really good.
And when you tee that up, Vindman said he's going to, do everything he can to get her elected. So let's see if he can transfer some of his $14 million he has left into getting her elected. Let's see, unless he keeps it for a future race of his own. Time will tell.
That's a very good point. And I will say that I'm going to show an excerpt from towards the end of her speech where she's basically giving her final message or
her pitch.
Her pitch, yeah. Earlier in the speech, she did, she was very gracious about her comments about Vindman and talking about unity and that kind of stuff, just like El Sayed was with Haley Stevens. So,
and maybe did it get as negative as the Michigan race?
I don't think it.
Okay.
I don't think it did, because I don't know that there was much independent expenditure at all.
Okay.
Because I think everybody just assumed what I assumed. So
Right.
Shame on all of us for just assuming away. But it just goes to show the power of her ability to do this kind of groundwork, retail politics. I mean, the many versus the money. Oh my God, 16-1. I'm telling you. Okay.
I mean, very similar to the Craig Flanagan race in Minnesota in terms of being outspent.
Yes. Although that was like 8-1 or 9-1.
Ashley Moody and her billionaire donors are terrified of us. They know that a united working class movement is coming for their unchecked power. And we all know what they do, especially when they're scared. They lie. They sow fear and hatred and division. They make it personal. We know the attacks are coming. But guess what? I'm standing 10 toes down. That's what we do. Ashley Moody and the corporate politicians in Washington, they label us. It's easier to try to make voters afraid of me than to defend the choices they keep making to make our lives harder. They look at this movement and they call us extreme. They call us radical. But I think people see through that. Yes, they do. Yeah. I won't let them define me, and I know you will always know where I stand. With you, everyday people. Everyday hard-working people. So especially for those who are just getting to know me, let me tell you a little bit more about what I think. We know workers deserve a living wage. We know health care is a human right. We know housing is a fundamental need. We know public education is sacred. We know child care is critical infrastructure. We know that our military and veterans deserve better. We know that immigrants are our friends, our neighbors, and part of the backbone. We know the family farmers who feed our state deserve to thrive. We know that power and property insurance companies shouldn't be allowed to raise prices just to give themselves and their shareholders more money. We know reproductive freedoms means bodily autonomy, period. We know that we have had enough of federal spending on endless war and death. We know the workers who build this state deserve the absolute right to form a union. We know clean water and clean air belong to the people. And we know our democracy belongs to everyday people, not corporate PACs, not big money lobbyists, and the billionaire donors who think they can buy our elections. If wanting your neighbor to afford their insulin is radical, then call me a radical. If believing a mother shouldn't have to work 3 jobs just to keep a roof over their heads is extreme, then call me extreme. But where I come from, okay, right here in Duval County, these things are not radical. That's right. They're not extreme. This is just basic human decency. It's caring for our neighbors. And I don't know about you, but I was taught to love my neighbors. That's what guides me. Some folks like Ashley Moody like to claim the mantle of morality, yet their actions tell a very different story. But we put actions behind our words. So Ashley Moody can call it whatever she wants. She can call us whatever she wants. But in November, she will call me Senator.
Love the last statement. It's a great closing statement. You can tell she's running on a shoestring campaign. First, she doesn't have a teleprompter, and I'm sure
she's holding up that piece of paper.
She will get one. I saw her. They're typed at least, but I could see all the corrections that she probably did herself. So she's put in a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in her own campaign and doing it on a very small budget, small team. And I mean, great speech, very similar to, like what Peggy Flanagan was saying. Same message, really strong speaker. The crowd was excited, has charisma. Now, Republicans are going to clip some of those things where she said, call me extreme, call me radical. That is, when you're running statewide like this and she's the candidate, she's got to be careful of what she says, and her team has to help her with this because they'll just take those clips and just make their own commercial out of it. So, I mean.
Right. But I think she's able to give. They're going to call her a radical either.
I know, but now she's saying it. That's going to be useful to the Republicans. Moody, her opponent. We'll see if they do that, but that's typically what they do.
Right. But I mean, but what I think she's inoculating herself to some degree from the ability to define her because she's so expertly defining herself. And that's, I think, part of the reason I think the electability argument of the establishment Democrats is so poor is because they're so bad at defining themselves. They always seem to like Kamala Harris just completely allowed Trump to define her and did nothing really to define herself. That's why that ad, the she's for they, them, he's for us, that's why that ad hit so damn well, is because she didn't define herself as who she was for and what she was fighting for. It's like, ultimately, what did she stand for? And you can say that about so many Democrats throughout the country that are just kind of like the standard issue corporate PAC back Democrats. And where this candidate right here is defining herself, this is how I want to be defined. And if you call that, extreme, fine, call me extreme. She's clearly raring to define her opponent, Ashley Moody, and she started the process of it just in that last.
And this was before the results. This was before.
No, this was the results.
This was her victory speech.
This was, yeah. Think about this, room with the poor lighting, just the normal like fluorescent lighting or whatever. This room, wherever, this campaign did not assume.
This would have been a perfect opportunity to do a professional style filming her speaking here with the crowd and the energy and the excitement and put that into a commercial. So really big missed opportunity.
Well, if you notice, some women walked in front of the camera that we saw in this with a much more with a pretty professional looking camera. So that might have been a staffer, a team member who's because notice she is speaking into the room mic, but there's that roadie mic right below her. So there is quality audio and quality video coming out of this. It's just not been published yet. Not the where I found. This is the only video I found.
In a couple weeks, she won't need notes at all. She will have this speech, and she will be able to make eye contact with the camera and the audience, and it'll be even better.
But you're right. I mean, I didn't think about it, but yeah, Peggy Flanagan's victory speech was very similar to this,
and she had a teleprompter.
Yeah, but the oratory here is just magnificent.
No, she's good.
And I don't know if you noticed it because it hit me because you and I talk a lot about ag issues, and we want to be talking more about farms and farmers and stuff on the pod here as we go along. But she specifically called out Florida farmers and policy for family farmers in Florida, which you never hear that.
No, you don't.
You just never hear that. I think that's something that interestingly John Ossoff has been good on in Georgia, but there's very few people like running for these big offices, big Senate offices. Like not even Peggy Flanagan specifically called out family farmers in her campaign. So that's something that is very interesting that you have two Southern Democratic Senate well, one of them is a sitting senator, and then Angie Nixon here, who are specifically calling out family farmers. I think that's really interesting. And I would like to see more of that just because, at least here on the American Dissent, we think of that as an extremely important issue that is absolutely undervalued by the political class in general.
Definitely. So what other races were you watching, Sam?
Well, God, there were a lot of interesting races. In the closely watched congressional races that pitted the conservative Democratic incumbents against the leftist challengers that we did talk about a lot and that I was kind of obsessed with, those were, again, big in the national media. I mean, these are people who were being interviewed on Fox all the time and stuff like that. So here, the incumbents, Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Jared Moskowitz, cruised easily to victory, even bigger numbers than Angie Nixon over Alex Vindman. So,
in the Wasserman race, in that congressional race where she was redistricted out of her district or it changed.
Yeah.
She had three challengers, all black, we're all four black. Well, they
Yep.
split the vote. If they would
Mhm.
have come together and decided who was the strongest candidate, they would have
Potentially,
beat her
she
because
almost
they
hit
racked up more votes
slightly.
among
She
the
almost
rest.
hit 50%. So that's not a guarantee that if it was just one opponent, she might still have won.
Maybe, but if you just add up the votes, they have like 46 points, 1 point above her total
Yeah.
so far. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not. She could very well still have won. She's still, as an incumbent, as a very big name. And there's a retrenchment thing among Democratic voters to vote for the safe, known. The crazy thing is she doesn't live in that district. In Florida, you're allowed to run in a
No,
district you don't
you
live
don't
in.
have to live in your congressional district.
That's
a
a state
policy
by
of
state thing.
Oh, it's Minnesota. You don't have to live in your
Oh,
district.
really? Okay.
Mhm.
Because that's true in Florida as well. That is not true in every state. In a lot of states, you have to live in the district you're running in. So, yeah, and then Moskowitz. Now, Wasserman Schultz this is a safe seat for Democrats, like overwhelmingly blue. In fact, it's supposed to be a black opportunity district. I mean, the damn thing was designed to have black representation. And if you couldn't tell from her name, Debbie Wasserman Schultz is not black, which is, a lot of local officials were very angry that she made this move, but it didn't affect her chances in the primary. And now she will certainly be the congresswoman from there. Now, Jared Moskowitz, on the other hand, he was redistricted. Now his district is now Trump favored. It's Trump +4, I think. Now, in a Democratic wave election year, that might not matter, but the lines were redrawn. And I will say this about the race, because you and I both suggested that Oliver Larkin didn't stand much of a chance. He got about a third of the vote. And I want to say something about this district. This is a very old, very traditional Jewish district. I mean, this is one of the most pro-Israel districts for Democrats in the United States. So the fact that Oliver Larkin was able to get a third of the vote is actually a pretty damn good showing for him and for the left. And he's built up. Keep in mind that all of these, really strong retail politics people that are losing have still built up an incredible organization where they are. That's going to be powerful. And we said this about Francesca Hong in Wisconsin. This is not negligible stuff. You've built something, it's not going away. You have to keep watering it, you have to keep feeding it, but let's keep talking about Florida, Jen. 2 Trump endorsed candidates lost. Overall, Trump went 0 for 3 yesterday. 0 for 3. That's his worst primary day ever. Ever. So in Florida, one of these people that lost was Corey Mills, who's an incumbent, but he's facing serious allegations of sexual misconduct and domestic violence. So not a surprise that he lost, but Trump backed him anyways. And then there were important local elections in Florida. I know we don't cover local elections as much, but this one I want to point out because there were a bunch of school board elections throughout the state. And Sarasota County is home to one of the co-founders of this group, Moms for Liberty. Her name is Bridget Ziegler. If you don't know, Moms for Liberty is I call it a national hate group, but it's a group organized around banning books and promoting homophobia and transphobia and just nasty stuff.
This is the group that started taking over races for the local school boards
all over the country.
This is where all over the country. Yep.
But they were founded in Florida, and kind of like Sarasota County, it was kind of like the epicenter of Moms for Liberty. And the Democrats just flipped the county board last night. And more than that, a bunch of other counties races are going to runoffs because they had a bunch of candidates and nobody broke the 50%. So there are a bunch of races going to runoffs. So Democrats could possibly flip a bunch more of these districts. And keep in mind, some of these school districts have a bunch of people that were simply appointed by Governor Ron DeSantis for various reasons. So there's a significant backlash against this Moms for Liberty movement, not just in Florida, but around the country. But the fact that there's backlash in Florida is really important because that's where the whole thing got started. So I wanted to take a moment to I guess, congratulate Florida voters for.
And maybe Craig Grau is right. Maybe Dems have a chance in Florida. He's optimistic.
I have my biases. I certainly think that the Angie Nixon win throws everything we thought kind of into the blender. Of course, Sabato's crystal ball moved it to safe Republican, the Senate race, but that could be a misread. It's just assuming that a leftist candidate cannot possibly win in Florida, which I don't think. I mean, they've tried the centrist Democrat over and over and over and over again, including former Republicans like Charlie Crist. And in the governor's side, a former Republican is the Democratic nominee. David Jolly, who used to be a Republican congressman from Florida, is now the Democratic nominee. And interesting, he was asked, I don't have this video pulled up, but he was asked about his thoughts about running statewide along with Angie Nixon. And he's like, well, that is strange. And we'll see. I mean, there are lots of things I agree with her on, and we'll be running, together, and we'll see what voters think.
And Jolly's running against the Trump-endorsed Republican for governor.
Oh, Byron.
Byron, yeah.
Well, I don't think Trump endorsed Byron Donalds, but
I thought he did.
I don't know that he did, but I mean, he was easily the favorite, Byron Donalds. I will point out that this Florida GOP primary race for governor got a little bit more notoriety because one of Byron Donalds' opponents, was a Groyper and Nick Fuentes fan who's famous for doing Nazi salutes and being incredibly racist. This guy named James Fishbach. He had a terrible showing for someone who got an enormous amount of press. I mean, that's good that a Groyper could not do very well at all in that race, but he got so much coverage. It was really gross.
Wow.
Because he is an out-and-out Nazi. I mean,
he was awful. Endorsed by Trump, Byron.
Oh, Byron Donalds was?
Yes.
Oh, okay. My bad. Well, anything else you want to say about Florida, Jen? No? Okay.
Move on. What's the next state? Alaska?
Well, I'm going to turn to Wyoming first.
Oh, God.
To get
the
massacre
massacre in Wyoming. I can't wait to talk about Wyoming.
The massacre. So there were two statewide races here for the GOP, and it featured wins for two particularly non-fire-breathing Republicans. So voters had an option to pick, the super right-wing, super election-denying people, because there were races for Secretary of State, which oversees elections, and governor. So for Secretary of State, this is really odd. Robert Short won the primary. This guy won his primary praising election workers and disagreeing with the current Secretary of State, who was pushing for new voting restrictions. Like, this is a Republican who ran on the goodness of the voting in this is not normal for Republicans. That someone who's actually supports the election system and not restricting. Of course, in Wyoming, there's no point in restricting the vote since it's so overwhelmingly GOP and so overwhelmingly white. But still, it is a bit of a shock. And then in the GOP governor primary, that's where another Trump endorsee fell to a guy who's really, really conservative. Like, really conservative. He's not fire breathing. He's much more staid in his public pronouncements. I think he's just as crazy as everybody else, but he's very modest in what he says out loud. He's careful. That's Eric Barlow, by the way, state senator. And the Trump endorsed candidate is the superintendent of public
schools.
Instruction. Yeah, Megan Degenfelder.
Yes. That was who Trump supported. This Eric Barlow, though, he's like a everyday person, a rancher. He's a veteran lawmaker. I think he says he's like aligned with a Reagan Republican, but maybe not. Maybe he's more extreme.
Well, he's very, very conservative. I mean, a Reagan Republican that's about as conservative as it gets. I mean, the whole Reagan movement turned into the Trump movement, in my opinion.
No, but what happened in Wyoming? I mean, those two races are exciting to talk about, but The Wyoming Freedom Caucus, this is their hard right group, extremists, they got shellacked. I mean, they lost
in the
a
state
bunch
house.
of
Yeah.
in the state house. I mean, they thought they were going to take a sweep and control the House, the Senate, and the governor's race, but they lost in the governor's race, in the Secretary of State race. They lost 12. 12 of them were ousted from the legislature, and 3 of those were leaders of the state house caucus. And they lost key state Senate races. So that pendulum swung way back in Wyoming. So this should be a big story nationwide.
I doubt it will be.
Should be. It's a big deal.
Yeah, it is kind of wild. I mean, and you could tell what was going on down ballot when you saw what happened at that Secretary of State level. I mean, the fact that a normal person won, it's just like, it's weird to put it in these terms, but that's what the Republican party has turned into. By the way, I have an aside on this, Jen, which is, for years now, Democrats have been employing this idea that they should specifically call Republicans MAGA or not. And I think that strategy has been wrong from the outset. I mean, Republicans are Republicans. I mean, MAGA is part of
let them own it, right? Yeah, for sure. I mean, don't they blanket statement all Dems? Yeah, they don't do that for Dems. Like, we're all socialists, communists, etc.
And then not only that, there was. Do you remember this? I don't hear it much anymore, but you would hear people talk about MAGA and then extreme MAGA, as if we're trying to separate these people further. Because there was a time when Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and these people were going on television all the time saying, I want a strong Republican Party again. Well, me personally, I want a dead Republican Party. I don't want a Republican Party. It can go away as far as I'm concerned. And this idea, we want a strong Republican Party. What? So that you don't have to pass any laws or do anything? My God.
Well, this just shows you that more Republican Party is becoming fractured from the MAGA, the Make America Healthy Again group. They are really fighting. They're going to have a very hard time keeping their broad coalition together.
Well, once Trump's not around, he's the glue holding it together. It's a cult of personality. It's a cult of personality, and the Republican Party is completely enthralled to it. It's not there are Republicans and then there are MAGA Republicans. It's just they're all Republicans. They've all bought into it.
Yeah.
And the fact that you're seeing this break in Wyoming, I'll believe it when I see it. I mean, whatever. We'll see what kind of legislation comes out of these people. I doubt it'll be much of a change. My imagining is that it's more a rhetorical change than it is a policy one. That would be my guess. But prove me wrong, Wyoming Republicans. I'm ready to turn to Alaska now.
Okay, but let me say one more thing about Wyoming. Yes. Yeah. It's good that the extremists did not win the Secretary of State for national elections. It's good that a more moderate one, someone that was commending and praising the work of election officials. So
who are oftentimes volunteer. Well, some of them. Yeah, I mean,
it's very. People. I mean, if you are looking for good news, that is a piece of good news for you today.
I agree. And after watching that Angie Nixon speak, I watched it a couple of times, Jen. I was so moved by it. She's a very moving speaker. And so that was really good news. I was sad about Oliver Larkin and Elijah Manley, but But anyways,
okay, Alaska.
In Alaska, voters were presented with jungle primaries for U.S. Senate and governor. In the governor's race, there were only 2 Democrats running, and they both smooth sailing, got right through. But it will take some time to determine which 2 Republicans will join them, as there are an estimated 34,000 votes or so left to come in at this time. There are 12 Republicans and 3 independents running, although the independents don't appear to be doing very well. Among those 12 Republicans, the 2 that could move ahead, like 4 or 5 of them are within striking distance of each other. So we don't know who's going to take these other 2 spots. Meanwhile, in that Senate jungle primary, again, 4 people moved through. This is important because Mary Peltola, the Democrat, came out well ahead of the Republican incumbent in terms of raw vote.
I think it was 8,000, and they haven't counted all the votes yet, but 8,000.
Right, there's still that 34,000 votes left to count, but by percentage, she's like, she got 48, he got 43. So that's 5%. But even more importantly, she's almost at that magic 50% number. She's right there.
Well,
Meanwhile, yeah, go ahead.
I found was interesting in the governor's race is that the two top Dems got twice as many votes as the Republicans.
Yes,
so
the same with Mary Peltola getting so many more votes.
Are voting Dem. They're voting Dem.
This could certainly bode well for
This is a
Democrats,
huge signal for the November race elections.
Hopefully,
also good third good sign today.
Hopefully, it's a good sign. Hopefully it's not noise. Hopefully it is a signal to give Nate Silver a bit of his due from that book. But anyway, so the incumbent is Dan Sullivan, the Republican. So this is interesting. There's a little the fun side story to this whole Alaska Senate race is Daniel Sullivan, the man running apparently to confuse voters, appears poised to take the third spot. It seems almost certain that he's going to make it through. And there's a complete lack of clarity about spot number 4. It could be another Democrat, it could be another Republican, but they're each polling at 1.1% without these votes counted. So, and this Daniel Sullivan is like at 3% or something. So it's not like
people are not confused about it. They got their middle initial. It's S versus J. So I think they figured that out.
But here's the foreboding addendum to this. The Trump DOJ has issued subpoenas to investigate this other Dan Sullivan. This is chilling. This is like authoritarian stuff. It's overreach. What the hell are they doing?
This is what they're going to do to try to say that the elections are rigged, et cetera, et cetera. So we need to be ready and prepared. And lawyers need to be ready the day after the midterms.
Yep. So there's 2 more races of note from yesterday, one in Pennsylvania, one in California. So there was a special election, not a primary, a special election in Pennsylvania for the state house seat. Now, why am I bringing this up? It's just the state house seat in Pennsylvania. Well, this was a Trump plus 18 district. Butler, Pennsylvania. If that name rings a bell, that's where Trump got shot, or supposedly.
His ear got tipped.
Yeah, his ear got hit, I guess.
Maybe by glass.
Well, some other guy that, the Trump apparently has forgotten about was actually shot and killed on that day by an extremist Trump supporter, by the way, which is why that story didn't get much airtime as you would expect for an assassination attempt. But anyways, currently the Democrat in a plus 18 Trump district, the Democrat is leading by 88 votes, a guy named Brandon Dukes. Now, he's claiming victory today, about an hour or two before we started filming our podcast. He's claiming victory. Now, the Republican has not conceded. He's also not responding to comments as of recording, but 88 votes. Even if he lost, I mean, the fact that it's this close is shocking. Now,
another signal, another good news, Sam.
Yeah, absolutely. No question. Because this is a general election. This ain't just a primary. But of course, it's a general election on a weird
turnout.
day.
It's because it's a special,
Yep. But here's the thing. These two are going to face off against each other on November 3rd for the other general election. So this like they're going right back to campaigning as if this election today didn't even happen. But the fact that it did, and the fact that Brandon Dukes is like leading, I mean, all the votes are counted. So now it's just a matter of
confirming,
but also what are those ballots, those provisional ballots and military overseas ballots and stuff like that. So, I mean, with 88 votes, it could certainly flip the other way. But I mean, like I said, they're going right back to it. So we'll see what it looks like in November. Lastly, there is a result that's not a result because California is the slowest state to count its votes. Alaska's slow too. Washington's slow. Oregon's slow. Like the Western states are slow. But in California, we have a special election to replace the disgraced former Congressman Eric Swalwell. And this is a Bay Area district. So it's East Bay, not including Oakland. So East
It's a
Bay, north
it's a
north of
safe
San
Dem
Jose.
district, safe blue
Yes.
district.
Oh, for sure. But this is a general election, and it's the runoff. So from a jungle primary, it was two Democrats against each other. One is the party endorsed candidate, Aisha Wahab, and the other is an AIPAC endorsed candidate, Melissa
Hernandez. And I heard that
Hernandez. Yeah.
the first candidate is winning.
Oh, yeah.
Aisha.
So Aisha Wahab is also far more progressive. Like this is the left is behind Aisha Wahab, as is the party of that district. I mean, the district party endorsed her. But anyways, so it's a narrow 1,300 vote lead, which is a 2% difference, 51 to 49%. And by the way, AIPAC funded $2.5 million on behalf of Melissa Hernandez in this special election. So 62% of the expected votes are in.
I'm going to predict Aisha will win.
Well, I hope so, but it's there's way too many more votes out there to know for sure. So because California, and I lived there for 10 years, so this is not completely unfamiliar to me, it could be up to 10 days before we have a final result. Because California it's valid to have a ballot as long as it's mailed on election day. So as long as there's the stamp from the post office on election day, it's a valid ballot, which means that they can't give official results until they have time for all that to sort itself out, which is good. And also, by the way, people like the Republicans love to complain about California ballots, and like you get a ballot in the mail, you can sign it, put it in a box, put it in the mail, whatever. And people are, anyone could do whatever. There are Mickey Mouse signatures, blah, blah, blah. There is a rigorous process. This also slows it down. California goes through a rigorous signature matching process. They're really, really strict about it. And ballots with questionable signatures, they'll post it. And as a voter, you can see it posted. So if there's a question about your ballot, you can actually call and say, hey, was my ballot accepted? You can do all that. You can follow up as a voter, and they'll try and give as much information. Hey, if you're this person, we're not accepting your signature, come to the office or give us a call or do something. So they're very strict about it, and they're very good about it. So this idea that California is a Wild West in terms of...
Yeah, I voted early. I voted by absentee ballot during COVID, and I found it too tedious, and I'll never do it again. But guess who also voted by mail in this election?
Yes.
Trump voted by mail in Florida.
As he always does.
Always complains about it, but takes advantage of it.
I meant to bring that up earlier. Thank you for mentioning that. By the way, I wanted to. There was something I've been meaning to. I meant to mention this earlier, but something I said yesterday about that about the Wisconsin stuff with David Crowley. I showed that little clip of Harry Enton showing the polling on data centers and how the public is overwhelmingly against data centers. I would like to also add, and I should have yesterday, that regardless of what the polling says, there should be a pause on data centers until things can get figured out, regardless of what the polling says. Polling is important, and if everybody agrees on an issue in the right way. But the reason I thought of it is because there's a video going around of Angie Nixon. I made this connection in my head. 1 week after the October 7th, 2023, Angie Nixon proposed a bill on the floor of the Florida State House calling Israel's actions in Gaza a genocide. 10 days, basically, after October 7th. This was when this was a very unpopular position nationally, and the polling was still very much on Israel's side. So this is why, and I saw that, and it was just this, she was incredibly emotional on a floor speech. And she said, find this little clip. It's making its rounds. It's very easy to find. But she said on the floor, 10,000 Palestinian babies have died. And this is just 10 days after. And they were just bombing the hell out of it. And she's like, how many more before we recognize that this is wrong? And it got caught on a camera somewhere else in the house. a colleague of hers said all of them, as in they wanted all Palestinians to die. And she heard that, and she said, I just had a colleague say all of them.
She should have said the colleague's name, and that person's hopefully getting challenged by some good candidates. We should follow up with that.
Probably a Republican. I'm pretty sure it was a Republican.
So sad.
No, they did get named. I mean, they're named in the video.
Good.
Because they knew which microphone it came from, because everyone has their own mic on the floor, just like in Minnesota. So she's been on the right side of an issue that now the polling's very much on her side, but then it wasn't. So
well, I will just tell you, as a former elected official, if you vote and lead and take action based on your moral values, you will never have regrets. You will, if you believe.
But Jen, how many people? It seems like so few people operate on that.
That's true. I felt that. I felt like there were just a handful with me that operated that way, because they are all ambitious and they are thinking about the political calculations for their political career. So try to elect people that want to serve and do the right thing and don't care about what's next for them politically. That's really the type of candidate you want to elect.
It's hard to determine who that, because nobody's going to say, hey, I'm super ambitious. I mean, some people do. Some people are very open about their ambition, but a lot of people hide it.
I guess maybe because I'm on the inside, you know, and you
That's
can tell.
That's the thing. When you know these people, when you talk to them, when you're just a
Yeah.
regular voter, there's no way to, you're not interacting with these people. It's
But
hard
I will
to know.
say, like, on the data center stuff, more and more polling is coming out. So political strategists are telling their candidates, you cannot be supportive of data centers. They're telling Republicans this, too.
Right. And Republicans are following the advice. I mean, hell, Greg Abbott, who I'm sure loves data centers, wants to do a moratorium on data centers because he sees the polling.
Jesus. Wisconsin is in trouble. I mean,
so
someone's got to talk to David Crowley and say, hey.
So I watched, I for some reason, some random Wisconsin podcast came up on my recommended feed, and it was just four local people on the ground throughout the state who just do a little chat podcast together about Wisconsin politics stuff. And they're journalists, but they seem to be, from what I gathered, I mean, I don't know who they are, but from what I gathered, they're all pretty much solid Democratic Party supporters. And they were downplaying the importance of the data center issue in that race a little bit. Here's what they said that I thought had some value in it. They said you have to consider the source. So Tom Tiffany is obviously running hard against David Crowley on the data center issue. Their point is that Tom Tiffany is completely unreliable on that issue, which I mentioned that yesterday. I said, I'm sure Tom Tiffany, just like Greg Abbott, and just like all these
Republicans. I'm sure they can dig out clips of him being supportive of data centers.
I'm sure he's supportive of it, regardless of what he says.
So maybe it'll be a non-issue if they both support it. But I just think so many Dems are going to be talking to David Crowley that he's going to change.
Right.
He's going to.
And by the way, the thing because I played that Tom Tiffany ad, which was a good ad, but it said in the ad that Crowley has received $350,000 from the data center people. That's not true. Actually, he's received the money from unions, some of which support data centers.
Right. That's
where that money's coming from. And I think for a lot of Democrats that support data centers, if they're not like for instance, Angie Craig actually getting money from these corporations, if they're not getting money directly from them, the reason they might support data centers is because there are some trade unions. And for viewers of our show, go back to the conversation we had with Lyle, the union guy, because we talked about this very thing. There are some union members who would get hired, especially in the IBEW, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, who would get an enormous payday for the building of these centers. I mean, we're talking about just a one-off.
I know. I think the building trades will love to see, these projects. But do they want to live by a data center? Do they want their relatives or loved ones to live by a data center? Probably not. Do they want to pay higher utility rates because of data centers? No.
Right. But, for that one summer or whatever where they build the building, we're talking about 6 figures.
Yeah.
It just won't last. I mean, it's just you build the building and then there's just maintenance from time to time. I mean, the actual physical plant, once it's built, there's very little actual employee hiring.
No, but they always need the electric. I mean, there's constant maintenance of those data centers because
right.
How to
That's
run.
true.
And
But
the
when
heat
it's
and
like, when it's like, oh yeah, if the data center is like, 50 miles away, that's fine. I mean, it's just, it's a game. These developers know this. And they know how to play the union guys against each other and how to play the politics.
They're very good at it. They're very good at it. But I think people are wising up. And this is why you see bipartisan support against data centers. This is not a political issue anymore.
What I'm saying is I don't know, but I suspect that may be some of the dynamics going on in this Wisconsin race with David Crowley is that there's a union element to this that
maybe. Possibly.
That he gets significant support from trade unions favoring data centers. Because remember, as Craig Grau told us, the data centers that do exist are in Racine County, which David Crowley won handily over Francesca Hong.
Yeah.
But still, it's Racine County. I mean, he's not going to win.
Do you have other races? If you don't have other races, I want to talk about the South Carolina GOP debate.
I don't know anything about the South Carolina.
Okay, so we've got this is the race to replace Lindsey Graham's U.S. Senate seat, and
his
so
sister
they have
and Ralph
Darlene
Norman,
Graham is his sister. She's in the race, and they had a debate of just GOP candidates because they have to do a runoff on August 25th. There's a GOP special primary runoff. Yeah. So during this debate, and should be all over social media, but Darlene Graham is asked about South China Sea, Taiwan, and whether this area poses a risk for the United States. And in her response, Darlene Graham admits that she's not an expert on national security issues, and not that informed about national security. She fails to answer the question about Taiwan. And Representative Ralph Norman, who's also in this debate, was able to easily answer this question. So if people watch this debate, if it matters at all, this could really potentially hurt her race, because right now there's a lot going on in international affairs and national security.
Do you think it hurts her to be honest about not knowing about that?
I don't know. It could hurt some voters.
I'd rather that than just making up some BS or saying something.
Yeah, but you should know that Taiwan is our ally. I mean, that is all she really had to say. Taiwan is our ally. We care about what happens in this part of the world.
I know, but that leads to potential belligerence. I mean, our ally to the point of what? I would follow up with that by saying, well, is it an ally so much that we're willing to commit U.S. troops and lives to protecting it if China does something?
Her rest of her answer was she supports the military. She said that many times. That was her basic.
Which could mean stay the hell away from Taiwan, or it could mean...
but we don't know. We don't know.
No. Well, what was Ralph Norman? You said he answered easily.
He basically just stated the facts about Taiwan has been our ally for so many years and blah, 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 blah. And it is a national security interest for the United States. That's what he said.
Right.
But I don't know. When you're on a debate stage, it's a weakness. You look bad when you say you don't know something. In a U.S. Senate seat, you got to know about national security.
Well, I mean, it's more interesting because, of course, Lindsey Graham considered himself the expert on all things foreign policy.
And you would think that they would have conversations about that, and she would know a lot about it.
I don't think this will...
They were pretty close.
I don't think this will have any political relevance. Okay, I think she's going to stomp Ralph Norman.
Maybe.
She has Trump's backing, and Republicans probably don't know outside of the district that he's represented. I'm sure Ralph Norman is not very
debates probably don't
known.
Matter anymore. It sounds like the Nixon-Kennedy debate.
And it's not going to matter in the general. I mean, I know I've even had people ask me, "Oh, what do you think about South Carolina? Is it really competitive?" I mean, it might be slightly more competitive this year than it's been in the past. But what does that mean in South Carolina? I mean, if we have a wave election where a Democrat can actually win in South Carolina, that means the entire political alignment of the country has completely changed to a foundational degree, which I would be entirely in favor of. But I don't know that we're there quite yet, where we're talking about we're going from the 20s into FDR's New Deal. I don't know that we're quite at that foundational change of politics in the United States. I'm
But
just
the
hoping.
pendulum does swing back. Look at Wyoming. There was a
Of
huge
course.
swing back. So
Yeah, well, not to Democrat. I mean,
maybe it's probably
Wyoming,
not that
way
bad in South
back,
Carolina
Wyoming
yet.
was one of the most
Right,
progressive
I know.
states in the Union.
It's true.
Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, all these states had that prairie socialism thing. I mean, North Dakota had an incredibly strong. In fact, the Farmer Labor Party grew out of a movement in North Dakota. A progressive movement in North Dakota is what inspired Minnesota Farmer Labor Party to get off the ground. So, like that streak of far left politics in the prairie states and in these upper Midwest is really powerful stuff. But,
So, Sam, what's the next primary election? The South Carolina runoff?
Yeah, the South Carolina runoff is next week. Also next week is there's races in Oklahoma. There's runoffs in Oklahoma for GOP governor in Oklahoma. Statewide ballot measure in Oklahoma. So there's a existing law in Oklahoma requiring voter ID to vote, and this would enshrine that law in the It's a ballot measure to enshrine that law into the Constitution, which is expected to pass easily, because this the law that's on the books was actually voted on by voters. So this, when voters are asked, "What do you think about showing photo ID to vote?" It's overwhelmingly popular because most people don't picture a difficulty in having a photo ID, unless they are someone who does have difficulty in acquiring a photo ID. But for a lot of people, they don't think it's a particularly large barrier.
But they don't understand that if your name or middle name or last name is different, on your ID or now, I mean, that's the problem. That's becomes the barrier. It's not accurate.
For married women and stuff like that. And then also
so the devil's
for
in the
people,
details on that.
And there are a lot of, especially older, very old, but older Black people who don't have those documentation because of stuff that was going on in the Jim Crow South and stuff like that. They were never given proper documentation and stuff like that. And they've been able to vote, but these laws make it much more onerous. And also, like, what a state considers photo ID can differ. I mean, if it's like, when I was a college student in Wisconsin, my college ID was good enough.
Yep.
And you didn't need a photo ID. You needed some form of identification.
Okay, so we'll have to track. That's next Tuesday, you said, Oklahoma?
Yeah, so that Oklahoma ballot question and a governor runoff. There's also a race for the Oklahoma superintendent in the GOP runoff, which is actually important because Oklahoma has been a hotbed of some of the craziest school related stuff. They had this guy for a few years who was an absolute nut job as the state superintendent of schools, and he had a bit of a scandal because he hosted a meeting, and when he turned on the display television to show his pitch deck or whatever for that meeting, there was pornography on
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, he's
Oops.
he's a nutball. But so that's actually interesting to see, maybe if that race, if they put in someone a little more sane, but I won't hold my breath on that. I don't think he's running, he particularly, but probably someone else fairly unhinged like him will probably win, I'm guessing. But yeah, we'll see what happens with this runoff in South Carolina. I think it's a safe assumption that Darlene Graham will just float right through. But, Ralph Norman has a lot of credibility in the super, super far, 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 far right. I mean, he's part of that Freedom Caucus group, and he's been a crazy in Congress for a while. So there are reasons why Trump might like him. It's just, I'm sure Trump feels that sense of loyalty to Lindsey. That's why he's backing his sister.
Some really sad news about the war and
God, what's going on in Israel
and Liberia and other things, but other bad news coming back from getting off the elections is that United States national debt is now at $40 trillion. So
So how much per year
we disagree on how bad the national debt, what it means for the average person. But this means that Trump and Republicans promised to reduce the national debt. And did they do that? No. They have increased our annual deficits every year.
Right, which adds to the debt.
Mm-hmm. And the problem with having this much debt is we have to pay the interest. On this debt.
How much per year is the interest now? It's over $1 trillion, right?
It's over $1 trillion. It's more than we spend on Social Security and the military. It's huge. It's the biggest expenditure now in the budget. And this is happening when the bond market is unstable.
That's the issue. Yeah.
And Bessent, the Secretary of the Treasurer, Scott Bessent, just increased the cap on buying back older bonds. So it was at $2 million a week, and now he doubled it to $4 million a week. So the U.S. government is trying to stabilize the bond market by increasing demand for bonds, which increases the price, and it lowers the yield. And because really what he was concerned about is keeping interest rates, long-term interest rates, lower so people can afford a mortgage, et cetera. But this is a temporary, you buy back bonds in mass volumes like this to stabilize a temporary issue in the bond market. So this is not a good long-term strategy. So I feel we're going to have some instability in this market, and this is going to affect people's retirements and et cetera when this stock market, like you predict, is in trouble with all of the AI.
Oh, yeah. Let me ask you a technical question based on that, if you'll permit me, you being the economist here. But by doing these bond buybacks, I mean, companies obviously do stock buybacks to juice up the stock prices. So when a company spends money to buy back their own stock, they're reducing the number of overall stocks that exist, which increases the value of each individual stock that still exists. Is this similar to this bond buyback? Is that kind of a similar strategy there?
Yeah, they're trying to change the price and the yield of bonds.
So this is pure bond market manipulation is what it is.
Exactly. It's kind of the role of the Treasury, though, and the Fed's policy. But I mean, I will say that people don't want to own government debt anymore. Other countries don't want to own U.S. debt. This is why we went and helped Japan when their currency was in trouble. Yeah, because they own a lot of our debt, and if they start selling it off, we are in big trouble. Like I wrote a column, I don't know, maybe a year ago or two about the national debt. It's in the Minnesota Reformer, if you want to go look it up, about what this means when people don't have trust in the U.S. dollar, don't want to own our debt anymore. And we're going to have to start paying off $40 trillion. And I mean, this is not a good sign for the strength of the U.S. dollar and the strength of our economy.
So when you said we disagree on this, first of all, it's a theoretical disagreement based on modern monetary theory. But here's the problem with modern monetary theory. It relies on the U.S. having the global fiat currency. We're losing that status. And if we lose that status, then the debt becomes all important because it's going to be paired up against other stronger currencies. And so you have to throw MMT out the window if we lose our dominance with our currency.
And that's what I think folks in the know are worried about it. That is the big fear. And this is like if you are undecided about voting Republican or Democrat, I mean, this is a big reason you should vote for the Dems in the 2028 election, because we cannot continue with this current administration.
I just worry about conservative Democrats using this as an excuse to block because we spend $1 trillion a year on the frickin' military.
It's not but
and
Sam,
look at what it's getting us.
Sam, the money that we spend on anti-poverty and income assistance and education, it's tiny. So those programs should not be at jeopardy at all in terms of reducing our debt. I know, but it's in jeopardy because you've got all these candidates and elected officials who are backed by the people that want the money to keep flowing. I mean, we need to do an episode just on where money is allocated in the federal budget.
I mean, when you look at the news today coming out of Israel with Ben-Gvir saying we need to kill 30 to 40 people every night in Gaza. No matter who they are, they're not even human. I mean, this completely insane Nazi ideology coming. I mean, they're Nazis. I'm just going to say it outright. These Israelis are Nazis. It's the same thing. They've become the monster they fought against, however many years. I mean, it's like there's a whole history there, and a lot of the Israeli Jews actually have said horrible things about the Jews that died in the Holocaust, saying that they were wimps and they were pathetic and they should have fought back more. I mean, there's a long history of just anti-Semitism from Israeli Jews. It's kind of nuts. But anyways, our money, what munitions are they using to kill these Palestinians? Ours. Who's making money off this? It's the U.S. military-industrial complex. And someone shared with me on a text thread I'm on, someone shared with me something about one of the reasons that Trump didn't want to keep sending Ukraine Patriot missiles and stuff like that is because the Lockheed Martin and the companies that manufacture these missiles didn't want Ukraine to be able to reverse engineer them and start producing better versions of these missiles in Ukraine. I mean, this is nuts. This is all about enriching the military-industrial complex in the United States. Well, it's not all about that, but it's largely about that. And I just worry that regardless of party, that this is a problem. And this is why I get so excited with candidates like Angie Nixon, because I'm not worried that she's going to get to Washington and start fighting on behalf of the military-industrial complex. That's not a concern for me with her. And that's why I feel so strongly about electing these populist candidates, because they're not accepting money from corporate tax. They're not accepting money from these people. And these people are draining the U.S. budget. They're draining it. Because when you see the pictures coming off the USS Abraham Lincoln, you see the pictures of the bathroom facilities, you see the picture of the plumbing, they're falling apart. We're giving them $1 trillion a year. Where the hell is this money going to if we can't even keep these massive, hugely expensive pieces of equipment like an aircraft carrier running smoothly and humming along? They're horrifyingly decrepit in terms of
and the lobbyists for the military-industrial complex want us to build more of these ships, planes, and stuff. And the strategy of war is changing, right? Small drones, cheaper, that can be built in someone's backyard, essentially. And so, I think we have to question, where are we going to invest to protect our country and protect democracies across the world? What are we going to invest in? It's not going to be in this old technology that's not effective, that won't work.
Yeah, it's another reason that I feel it's so important to focus on these elections and to talk about, where these candidates stand and where they're getting their money from. And it's another reason I'm on the left, because I'm against this stuff. And like money for free college, money for Medicare for all of this stuff is a drop in the bucket compared to these other expenses, including just the annual interest on the debt, as you mentioned. It's so much more scary now than it was, 5 years ago, Jen, when we had these conversations, and I was a little bit more glib about it because, I didn't expect the primacy of the U.S. dollar as a global, global currency standard to be disabused like almost overnight. I mean, Trump is ruining the global economic system, ruining it, which means he's destroying the U.S. dollar. He's destroying the U.S. dollar, and it's not being covered. They're not covering it.
He's just getting rich. He's getting rich. His family's getting rich. People around him getting rich, and all of the rest of the folks are suffering. So much to talk about, Sam. We will be back tomorrow to catch up on all the news we were not able to cover today.
Yes, there's been so much, and with the guests, we've been lax in going over some of these things. But I did, before we go, I want to mention, because I talked to you and Scott off camera yesterday because I got a book, and so I want to recommend to all of our audience this book. I started reading it, Jen, and I couldn't put it down, to the point where I almost wasn't like fully prepared for today's show because I could not put this book down. I just want to recommend it. It's called The Nerd Reich by Gil Duran, Silicon Valley Fascism and the War on Democracy. It is terrifying who's in power in the United States.
Put it in the show notes with the link to the interview that they did with the author, because I know Scott mentioned the interview.
Yeah, he's been interviewed all over the place. Scott and I mentioned we both had seen the interview on Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman, who's, one of my heroes in media. If you are watching this and you are not familiar with Democracy Now!, please familiarize yourself. It is one of the most important news organizations there is, period. They're fantastic. And their motto is to get the story to point the camera at the people that the cameras almost never point at, and get the story from the other side, as it were, and find out what's really going on. They're just remarkable journalists through and through. And yeah, they interviewed Gil Duran. Great information in this book. I just can't put it down, and I'm going to start reading it again later this evening. But
okay, well then I'm going to have to get it from you so I may read it.
There you go. So on behalf of Jen Schultz, I'm Sam Martin, and this has been Our Dissent.